It's raining down fire. I see the smoke in the distance. I feel scared and alone. Who's gonna rescue me? These flames getting higher, and I'm running out of time. Now I'm running, yes, I'm running for my life. Who's gonna rescue me? 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 It's raining fire. It's raining fire. Who's gonna rescue me? Rescue me. It's raining down fire. I see the smoke in the distance. I feel scared and alone. Who's gonna rescue me? These flames getting higher, and I'm running out of time. Now I'm running, yes, I'm running for my life. Who's gonna rescue me? 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 It's raining fire. It's raining fire. Who's gonna rescue me? Who's gonna rescue me? Who's gonna rescue me?
For good times.
God, this song is so fitting.
Oh yeah.
Rage out. Of course, rage out, and our theme starts. Not as hard.
Distance nerding.
I purposely turn the mic down because it's like I'm loud. I know. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for everybody's favorite time of the week. It's time for that distance nerding goodness. It's time for the build. Oh, yes. Are we going to have fun? Of course, ladies and gentlemen, that beautiful concoction of a monster right there is the beard. But the beard is attached to graveyard.
Yeah, unfortunately, I come with a beard. But right next to me is the one only 97-cent version of Wade Wilson, Young Phil.
That is right. I am the Temu version of Wade Wilson. You can purchase me on Temu for 10 cents. Ooh. Yeah, exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, what's up, everybody? We're ready. It's time to go. We're ready for some fun. We got an amazing guest lined up for you guys. Oh, yeah. I know Graveyard is particularly excited about this one because it is right up his alley.
Just a smidge.
Right now, yes, Night of Oa in the building. Happy Thursday, coming in from comicbook.com. Love it right here. Matt Aguilar in the building, man. So guys, before we get to the guests, because again, I'm excited for this one right here. We've watched a couple films going on at this point now, and I don't want to spoil what we're doing right here, but let's get into sponsors so we can just kind of get the back of house stuff done first, and then we'll get right into the fun of our guest today. So, ladies and gentlemen, our stream, our channel, everything we do here is brought to you by none other than Poddex. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Poddex are a unique episode question and episode starting prompt in the palm of your hand. So whether you are a new podcaster or an existing broadcaster looking to grow your audience or get more engagement, you're going to want to check out poddex.com. Guys, level up by using the code NERDING10 and get 10% off your order. We use Poddex in all of our interviews. The Grave, the Beard, also uses Poddex. Yes. The entire interview that we have tonight is brought to you by Poddex. Everything that we that helps give us ideas, and then we kind of go from there. Once we have one prompt, we kind of just get going, and it helps us write 1,000 questions, right, guys? So again, head over to poddex.com. It's not only just decks for interviews and stuff like that. They teach you close-up magic. Graveyard. He can show you right there. Now you see them. How you know? There you go. Right. It's the
lost my thumb.
Wish version of thumbs. All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if the entire channel, everything we do is brought to you by Poddex,
what powers Young Phil?
Exactly. What powers Young Phil and the amount of energy that I have that nobody can figure out? And I'll tell you what it is right now, ladies and gentlemen. It's Dubby. Wait a minute. Hold on. That's not grand enough. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Dubby.
There you go.
It only works when the volume's up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Dubby is an emerging brand of energy drinks created to help focus, concentration, reaction time with no jitters or crash. Dubby contains no maltodextrin, no sugar, no filler, no artificial colors or dyes. Now, you may be asking yourself right now, what makes Dubby different from other gaming supplements? Guys, I'm going to let you know what it is right now. It's the fact that Dubby is one of the few drinks that contains Neurofactor. That's right. Neurofactor is a nootropic. Is that the right word? Yeah, nootropic. That's the
Topic.
right, derived from the coffee fruit. Neurofractor helps give your brain focus and clarity with 150 milligrams of caffeine. That's right, 150 milligrams of caffeine and 3 essential B vitamins help you stay alert and energized. Guys, find out more about Debbie at www.debbie.gg. Use the code Nerding10, like you see on the screen right there. Get 10% off your order. Completely worth it. Now, they mostly pod at night, mostly podcast. I'm trying to hit the button and I can't.
Night, mostly.
And Distance Nerding are both sponsored by Poddex, but now Distance Nerding and our friends and sister channel over at Kyber Cave are also sponsored by Distance. So that's it. It's growing, and that's all we can ask for. Definitely worth the try, guys. All the flavors are delicious. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to be drinking a W concoction tonight. Or I guess I could be, but it's because I'm trying something different today. I have a League of Legends exclusive flavor of Coke.
Oh,
And it's called the Ultimate.
is it made with 12-year-old kids' tears? I mean,
It has to be with tears of 12-year-olds as well as the 14-year-olds that I make cry in Call of Duty. But then on top of that, it's made of every jungler, all the blood of spilt blood of junglers. Damn it, I can't speak. Jugulars, right? And all of the victims of Annie in mid. That's a League of Legends reference. If you guys don't know that, Annie is a 8-year-old child that summons a demon bear. And the demon bear pretty much mauls everybody to death. So, it's all the sad victims of that and Tahoe Joe reference. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
And unfortunately, Master Roshi was not with us tonight.
No, Master Roshi's not here. Hence why I started making the jokes and references that I did. Let me what I didn't do here was open up my my interview here. So let me open this up. Ladies and gentlemen, let's what can I say? Now, we just met this gentleman at Silver Age Comic-Con. He made an impression. He's got a film coming up in October that I'm going to let him do, so no spoilers on that. And he is a he's an independent filmmaker. Does mostly horror. Most of the films that I've seen have all been found footage horror films, and God, are the stories great. So I'm gonna say he is a great storyteller, and along with that, very crafty is the word I'm gonna go with, based on the things that I've read. So without any more further to do here, ladies and gentlemen, let's introduce our guest today, the creator and purveyor of Horror Nerds Productions, as well as, I believe, Horror Dads. Let's welcome on Dillon Brown. Yeah. Where are my kids at? Kids scream. There they go. All right.
What's up, guys?
How's it going, Dillon?
It's good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. We're excited to have you on, man.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, Graveyard is really excited because he's been saying for a while we need more horror guests. We've had like a few, but like this worked out, and we're excited.
Yeah, it was perfect. It was it's like it kind of felt like divine intervention there when I wasn't even going to go to that Comic-Con, and I happened to have a couple of hours, so I was like, I should pop in. I have some people to see real quick. And then you guys were super fun to watch up on the panel. And so I was like, this is perfect. And then Lee and Nancy Ann basically called me out in the crowd there as I was trying to hide and lurk. And then it was like, well, it's on now. And it worked out perfectly. So, and then you told me Graveyard's podcast name, and I was like, okay, Newt from Aliens reference. I'm down. Let's go. I'm ready. So
Did you hear me play the tag earlier?
I don't know if I heard it or not.
All right, listen here.
They mostly
Odd.
at night. Mostly.
Oh, it's so natural.
Exactly right. My voice is just perfectly goes in with new. It works out.
I didn't know you were in there. That's perfect.
Graveyard is the master of I love everything schlock. So I was like, okay, what's the most schlocky way that I can make this? If I just abruptly put his voice in there, it's like, you know, like the most terribly cut version of this, but it sounds
That's so perfect.
it fits exactly what he's trying to do with his show.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you look at my bio description on Comic Con Radio, it's purveyor of cheese.
I love it.
Oh God,
I mean, that's perfect because that's basically what all my movies are. Is basically they're just cheese, and I don't know like what level of cheese we're at yet. Like I know we started at like a craft single, and I'm trying to kind of move my way up to like a Baby Bell or something, and then maybe after that we'll get to like the charcuterie board cheese. But we'll see.
I'm waiting for Fine Brie.
I'm waiting for her too.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm just kidding. I'm totally married.
I mean, so am I. I think all of us are married here, not to each other.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all.
Are you sure?
When I say Fine Brie, I mean
Allison Brie. Got it. We know.
yes, absolutely. Or that Brie Larson has slowly been getting hotter over the last couple of years here.
I agree.
She went from she's okay to she's actually kind of hot now. It's all the working
I always
out.
liked her in what was it? Scott Pilgrim.
Scott Pilgrim, and I thought she was hot in Scott Pilgrim, but that's also where my love for Aubrey Plaza came from. So,
yeah, okay.
I have a she's technically my hall pass when it comes to me and my wife. So, you know.
Yeah, my wife is kind of like her. She's like the sexy mean, which is great. So
mine's just mean. Oh.
Yeah.
No. We should move on before any of us get killed.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, you know, we're all getting in trouble at this point. Anyways, all right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into this interview because I mean we're excited for this. So before we jump into you, right? Before we jump into kind of like how you became and everything like that, we want to get into no pun intended here, you. So before we get into your story, let's learn about you, right? We have a segment on the show called Growing Up Geeky. What did you geek out on as a kid? Like what are things that you liked as a kid that you just completely geeked out on?
Well, you can see over there somewhere Jurassic Park art and Jurassic Park art and Jurassic Park sleeve tattoo.
Nice.
So that is my absolute insane fandom is Jurassic Park. In 1993, I was like 7 years old, and my parents went and saw the movie first. At the time, they didn't really have any idea what they might have been taking me to, so they went to check it out. And my dad said that they're watching it, and the Brachiosaurus walks across the screen, and nobody'd seen CGI like that yet. And he said he and my mom, they looked at each other, and they were like, "We don't care what else happens in this movie. We have to bring Dillon. Like, no questions asked. He has to see this." And so the very next day, my dad took me to go see the movie. And then like they took me like 5 more times. And I seriously, from that moment, it was, I want to figure out how they did it. I want to make a movie. And I was convinced that the dinosaurs were real. I'm like, there's no way they're not real. I have to know how they brought them back to make movies. And I've been obsessed ever since, like not with just the movie, but with like how movies are made. And then that led me to horror because it seemed like horror was the most accessible movie for finding special effects shows on. I think it was HBO or somebody used to have like they would play this program where it actually would show you some of the behind the scenes of Aliens. Like I remember learning there were 11 people that puppeteered the Queen Alien when I was really young. and then I saw Stan Winston Studios building, stuff for Jurassic Park or for, I think they had a showcase on him making the Pumpkinhead, creature. And that's when I realized that I like other genres. I like comedies and stuff, but horror, I was like, this is the one where all of that cool stuff that I like is like in your face. These guys are not afraid to show that magic behind the scenes. And man, I've just been hooked ever since. And really, it was Jurassic Park that set it off.
Wow.
Nice.
I mean, you're not wrong with the description of horror, because it's kind of like, horror is where, like you think about like where a lot of special effects and kind of like pushing the boundaries for special effects come from. A lot of that is in horror.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I think that horror probably, I think that they unfairly get credited for the awful effects in like a weird way, right? So it's like Eli Roth could do some kind of heinous, horrible thing in Hostel, but to other films, like a war movie, they go, oh, that's really great. We could use that technology for our war movie. But Eli Roth does it in his movie, and it's torture porn, Yep. And so it's just like this kind of weird stigma that the genre is in, but it's also so punk to be in horror because you're so like kind of, bucking the system, and it's boundary pushing, and yeah, you feel like you belong with the community of people who feel like they're fighting the world all the time in the genre. So that's why I'm here.
Oh, James, horror and porn advance the film industry. Kinda, not joking. Porn does advance. Porn determines what media wins: VHS versus beta, HD versus Blu-ray. They determine all that.
I mean that's not hyperbolic in any way. Like, that is 100% true. That porn determines all of that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. That is like, I could only imagine if there was a time machine. I know people would say, like, I would invest in Amazon or this and that. Nah, Pornhub. That's where you would absolutely make the most money.
and that, again, not hyperbolic. That's 100% true.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, let's get back to a little bit. What is something that people are currently nerding out on that you don't typically not understand? James and I are quite old, and we don't understand TikTok. So, that other people have said crypto. Is there anything that people are like obsessed with that you just don't understand?
Yeah, honestly. So I'll be 38 in November. I don't understand NFTs or cryptocurrency like at all. I don't get it. I never even tried. I don't have TikTok, so I don't know how it works. That is like the one old man thing that I'm like, I don't even have it, So
old
yeah,
men
those two things 100%. And then I have one that's probably a little controversial that some people are like, oh, whoa. But I am like, okay, so I don't want to be crucified for this, but I have zero interest and I have not watched a single Star Wars show. I don't get it. I like the movies and I'm really big. I love those original three. Oh my gosh, those are so amazing to me. Empire Strikes Back is like the greatest sci-fi film ever for me. But I just don't feel like I have any desire to watch the shows. Now, reading a book where I could get really into the character, that would be something different, or checking out comics. But I don't know. I'm sure I'm missing out on some cool stuff, but I don't watch any of them. And I don't even care that I don't watch it.
Oh, don't pay any attention to what Phil's building down there. Then.
Yeah, I know. Well, you know what? That's 100% true, because this character is very much an expanded universe character. I mean, he did make an appearance in the the prequels, though.
You want to hold it up so Dillon can see?
Yeah. So I'm actually building Clone Commander Cody's helmet.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I can appreciate. So I 100% appreciate the fandom, right? Yeah. It's just like as a kid, if somebody told me when I was really going through my Star Wars phase, because I used to collect all those Kenner figures, man. I like through the 90s, I had all of them, and I was like a Han Solo fanatic because Indiana Jones was my boy, so of course it just automatically Harrison Ford. Yes, those right there. I've
got the Kenner.
Absolutely, and they had the little slides. That's right, the projectors slides, which was so cool. And so if somebody had told me back then, like, hey, there's going to be a show, there's going to be a bunch of shows, and you're going to be able to watch all these episodes, I would have gone ballistic. And I don't know what happened, but for some reason, for me personally, a bunch of CGI in Star Wars didn't feel right.
Yeah.
Matte paintings and miniatures felt like Star Wars to me. And as soon as it got so big and almost like realistic, it didn't feel like Star Wars to me. And I know it's kind of a strange thing to say, but I also have this thing, maybe my Jurassic Park fandom. I like the Jurassic World movies, but when it was all CGI, it didn't feel like it to me at all.
So, to kind of go with that, I mean, like, where you might like what you might like in the shows is they went back to a lot of that. Like they went back to a lot of practical effects and a lot of like
that is cool.
like the Mandalorian specifically. The ship looks like it's CGI when you look at it, like when you see the Razor Crest moving in space and everything. They went back to the original format, their models.
Now, see, that's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, because he wanted they specifically wanted it to feel like when the ships fly that they felt like the original ships from Star Wars.
Oh, that's cool.
And the biggest difference now is instead of them being in front of like a green screen when they're inside of the cockpits, now they have the volume and it looks like, everything looks real when they're in the cockpit. And that also helps the actors because then they're not in, green screen. It's like it immerses them inside of everything. So they feel a little bit more like attached to the universe.
Like they're really there.
Right. Yeah. So it helps with the acting. Like I feel like, especially like when you look at the Obi-Wan series, right? If you look at Hayden Christensen and all the hate that Hayden Christensen gets as Anakin, I think he would have done so much better had he had something like the volume at his disposal.
I can see that.
One of my things that I say all the time about those particular movies, like it wasn't that Hayden Christensen is a bad actor, it was that he had to act on literally nothing but green screen.
Yeah.
He had no way to know what's going to be happening in the scene aside from what was written on there. And you look at Hayden Christensen and Obi-Wan, and it's like night and day. The guy is, well, I mean, he also had like 20 years to hone his acting skill, but I mean, like, it is very different. Like him playing that same character. He also did admit that he based that version of Anakin on the version of Anakin from the Clone Wars cartoons. Because he felt that portrayal of Anakin was better than his.
Absolutely.
That's cool. That's another thing. So I haven't watched any of those either, and I'm probably missing out, a bit. But yeah, like no hate on it at all. It's just one of those things that I'm like, yeah, I just don't. I don't feel like I miss it. Yeah, so I just don't get it. But I don't hate on it either. I love all fandom. I think anybody that gets super excited about something, like we have a motto with the horror nerd thing. People will say all the time, like, oh, that movie's a guilty pleasure of mine. And I'm like, there's no such thing as a guilty pleasure. If it brings you pleasure, never feel guilty about it. It's like, it could be the worst movie in the world, but if you like it, then own it and enjoy the hell out of it.
I love that.
So I've always kind of subscribed to that. And I think a lot of that comes through in my movies where I'm okay with embracing the cheese because it's stuff that I like watching myself. And so I pay homage to things that maybe some people would say, oh my God, that's ridiculous, or that movie was good up until that point. I'm the guy that's like, no, that point's when it got really cool. And so it's, pay homage to the fromage,
Are you and Graveyard the same person? Is this
maybe?
That's like his philosophy.
It absolutely is. But I want to get more into you here, Dillon. You talked about that Jurassic Park kind of made you inspired to want to learn how to make films, stuff like that. Is there like any particular horror movie that you go, that really resonates with me? Like the earliest one you can see. Now, I personally consider Jurassic Park to be a horror movie because it's a science experiment gone wrong.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely.
100% with that.
I would say, I think there's two that have probably left the most, impression on me. and it's so funny because I have other directors who I go to all the time, and I love their stuff. But for some reason, these two happen to be from the same director, and it's John Carpenter. And it's not probably the two movies that everybody would think. Now, the first one is a very popular one. It is The Thing. Because being a practical effects guy, that is like the penultimate practical effects movie. It was so unbelievably gross and groundbreaking and cool.
Such a good movie.
Oh, my God. And I still don't even know how they did a lot of that stuff. To me, there are still some things there that are so mysterious on how they did it. And I love that. But the other one, I think you could probably consider like a horror light or like horror comedy ame, or I don't really know where it even fits, would be Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, God.
Go back to the board. Where are you at?
Yeah. So we've interviewed people, right? Yeah. We've interviewed people that have a comic series called the Pork Chop Express.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That is awesome.
And it is actually absolutely one of my co-hosts, one of his favorite movies of all time. You know, it's the white savior gone wrong, essentially.
Oh, totally. Jack Burton is like, so I'm just going to transition this into what I'm doing now. And I work with a lot of veterans. Like most of the people I put in my movies are veterans. And the reason we go with veterans or law enforcement or first responders in most of our movies is many of those guys are using acting as a therapy for PTSD.
Yes.
And so that became kind of Horror Nerd's big point. It was, we don't really care how popular our movies get. As long as we can keep getting funding to make movies to put vets in it and get these guys sort of out of the horrors of the real world and into the fantasy world, then we're happy, right? But one of the things that my frequent collaborator, Michael Rock, greatest name ever, by the way, he's a Green Beret, like highly decorated badass, and his name is Michael Rock. It is like, it's so perfect.
Yeah. Actually, so I'm a former Army Ranger, right? And one of my NCOs, I never knew his first name, but his last name was Thunderhawk.
Oh, that's so cool.
Right? So Sergeant Thunderhawk.
That is amazing.
Right? And the funny thing with that is, for some reason, every time, so he was Native American, right? But like anytime he was around, there was always this falcon that was in the air.
Oh, man.
Right. And it was just kind of like we would make jokes about it. Right. And I remember he went on leave and we were walking in the compound. We look up and we see this falcon. And we're like, oh, just making a joke. We were like, oh, it looks like Sergeant Thunderhawk's back. And then we round the corner and he's right there.
Oh, that is cool.
Little did you know, he was a falconer as well.
Right.
I'd ask if he really was. I mean, if in the future at some point, Sergeant Thunderhawk, if you ever see this show, tell us that you were a falconer. Tell us if you were a falconer.
So anyway, so to like not feel like I lost the Jack Burton and the comment that you made with the white savior gone wrong, one of the things that Mike and I joke about, or that Mike will actually talk to me about, is like the stolen valor thing, where all these guys who maybe wanted to go in, or they did go in, but they were there for just a little bit and they went out on some kind of retirement or something. It's all these like big stories of, oh yeah, when I was over there, or when I get over there, I'm going to kill all these people. I'm going to do this and do that. And then they get over there and it's not like that at all. In fact, Mike said most of the people that have the gusto to say all that stuff were really the more dangerous guys to have on your team, because they were going to make bad decisions or they were going to run away from those problems. Right.
Right. I had
so Jack.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, Jack Burton always reminded me, when John Carpenter wrote that character, he's like that guy. He's going to go in, he's going to kick all this ass. And then he gets the gun finally. And then what's he do? He shoots it in the air and the bricks fall down and knock him out and he misses the entire fight. Right.
Right.
And so I always loved that, because they like completely flipped everything on its head that you were expecting. And also by casting Kurt Russell and then not having him be like an ultimate badass was such an amazing decision. And so that movie just starts off funny and it goes, and it's hilarious all the way through, but then it has these like cool creatures and some crazy violence. And I just love that movie. I absolutely love that movie.
Hell yeah.
Oh, the basis for Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know? Yeah.
I was mentioning before, like, so again, I'm talking to NCOs, but like there was an NCO that he would always tell us, like, you know, we make jokes, like we have to make dark jokes in order to get through the shit that we do. But nobody, no sane person should be okay with killing people. Like there's it should not sit well with you. Anybody who claims that they've killed anybody has killed no one. Anybody who claims that you know, if somebody's actually killed somebody, they're not going to want to talk about it, and they're just going to tell you, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
one of the worst questions you can ask a vet, especially a vet that's actually seen combat, is, "Oh, did you kill anybody?" You know,
right?
Yeah, it's like, I don't want to talk about that. Like, that's not, you know.
Yeah, that's how I knew. Like when I met Mike, and we were starting out on this venture, I knew he was the real deal because he didn't even want to tell me that that's where he came from. He was literally just auditioning as an actor. And I said at one point, it's for my movie I did called The Flock, and I needed these mercenary guys. And I told him, I said, yeah, man, you know, it was really good to have you here. And, you know, if you get the role, we're going to probably, you know, talk to maybe some airsoft guys or something to talk about weapons handling for the movie. Because at the time I didn't really have many connections, and I thought, you know, this will help. And I've done a lot of shooting and stuff. You know, I grew up in a really small town, and I've done, you know, hunting and fishing and all that. So I know how to use a firearm, but I don't know how to use them in a very tactical sense. And I wasn't going to try and pretend like it. And Mike kind of raises his hand, and he's like, well, I don't think you need to bring in those guys, because I'm actually a former Green Beret and I could teach anybody. And I'm like, whoa, like, how come he didn't open with that for this mercenary role? And he didn't want to bring that up, because I really think that for him it was like, okay, that was a time of my life, but now I want to be an actor, and I'm not going to use that as an advantage, right? And then we got to become friends, and we were talking about some stuff. And when Mike would say things like, yeah, man, when I was over there and it got real bad, you know, XYZ, but he wouldn't ever say any details about anything. He'd never tell me where he was or what exactly happened.
Right.
And I could just see it in his face that he saw things. And the fact that he doesn't even at all want to tell me about him after as close as we've got tells me that, A, I don't ever need to ask, and B, he did see stuff. And so it's hugely important for me to do whatever I can to make sure that he doesn't have to see those things when he closes his eyes all the time.
Right.
PTSD is a bitch, man.
You know, and I don't even pretend to understand it, because I don't have any that I can say that I really have. And I don't want to be those people that says, oh yeah, you know, I get it. I don't get it. And I think that's why I want to try and help, because it's very foreign to me. I've been very, very fortunate to not have anything like that happen. And so it's just, I feel like if there is a way I can give back, I didn't enlist because I wanted to go do something else. And so if I can help now, if I can help them while they're home and tie that into making movies, then I'm living the dream. You know, that's worth its weight in gold to me.
That's awesome, man. That really is.
Yeah. So, you know, with Michael being your collaborator and stuff like that. So what's your process now with the collaborator working on these movies? You know, what's the process? You know, do you have the idea first? Do you have title first? You know, tell us about that for you.
So, you know, it's interesting. Most of the time, like for the bulk of the projects, I was a writer before I was a movie guy. I wrote a bunch of books and I did a lot of short stories. And so for me, it was very easy to just pick and pull ideas, start writing out an outline for a script. And I kind of had some directing under my belt, and I knew how to work a camera, and I knew how to edit. So it was like, I can do this as a one-man team. Well, then I bring in Mike, and I started realizing that the greatest tool that a director could have would be to just listen. Listen to what an actor who's done some things can bring to the table and how that can actually help me. And so it went from me kind of basically, you know, like on The Flock, it was 100% my story and all this stuff when I first started. And by the time the movie wrapped, yes, it was still 100% my story, but it was like it was like 50% Michael Rock's vision helping me figure out where the camera was going to go following these guys because of how tactical things should be shot or whatever. And so our kind of process now is if I'm going to take on a movie and write it and direct it, just because my name might be on the writing and directing part solely, it doesn't mean that Mike wasn't there, like essentially as an assistant director almost the whole time. And then when we did Tahoe Joe, Mike was actually helping so much, and he was reaching out to other actors, and he was setting up some shoots where he was actually doing some of the filming himself when I couldn't be there. And that's when I was like, well, there's no reason to take this thing on solo. I'm just going to ask Mike, hey, bro, will you just co-direct this movie with me? And he's like, well, I never thought about doing that, but sure. And so so the Tahoe Joe stuff, it's a Dillon Brown and Michael Rock movie. Mm-hmm. Whereas like The Flock and Ghost might be a Dillon Brown movie starring Michael Rock. But neither of us really have egos, so we don't really care where the names fall. It's just like whatever. And so for collaborating, it's super cool because I'll throw out an idea and Mike will throw out an idea and we get on my couch and we'll put on a movie that's maybe close to what we're thinking about making or like somewhere, in the genre. And I think a couple times we put movies on it, but they've just been in the background. We haven't paid any attention to it at all. And we just literally sit and we talk and we bounce ideas back and forth. There's no long script writing process and sharing it back and forth. We talk it out and we make notes and we send each other videos and we save those videos, or somebody sees something cool and snaps a picture of it. And that's how Mike and I do everything. It is all verbal communication. And I think that's big time for having us. It's helped us develop our chemistry for sure.
And that's really awesome. Last October, I had the great pleasure of meeting the original Grandpa from Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, that's so cool.
And what his stories from that shoot, and you listen to John Carpenter and Halloween, and listen to you talk. It sounds like it's very much in your case too that everyone that you deal with is your family. Everyone does whatever they can to help make the movie happen. And
yep.
And that
Absolutely.
and that's why I love indie horror movies is for stuff like that. It's not that studio backed suits digging their hands into things, and it's just awesome to hear stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like a labor of love.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Oh, totally. And that's why, it's like every time we go into a movie, there is a big fear that sits with me that's like, okay, we're going to put a lot of effort into this, mm-hmm. And we're going to get going. It's going to take a long time. There is a very big possibility this doesn't see the light of day because it doesn't get finished. Something could happen because we don't have the studio to just keep throwing money at things to make sure that our problems go away. But then I get somebody like Mike who, he was a former Green Beret. I think in Mike's mind, it's going to happen no matter what. We're going to find a way. And that is so true what you said about the family thing, because people in the community who have already been helping us, I might have a time when I'm like, I don't know if I can shoot this. And if I ask any of those people, before long, my phone's blowing up and everybody's like, okay, bro, so you lost your location. That's fine. My aunt actually knows somebody who owns this. And then they already start putting in calls to make sure that we get whatever location we can to change some things. And Mike's in my ear going, hey, okay, so yeah, maybe we were going to shoot that scene in a barn, but like, we don't really need it to be in a barn. So let's change the dialogue a little bit. So-and-so's got an old warehouse. So let's just, change it to that. And so it's like every time I have those director fears of, oh boy, it's getting derailed, I've got this family that will make sure that it doesn't. And then the same thing will happen, I think, with me. I'm really kind of inventive. Nature is the mother of invention.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm completely botching that. Necessity is the mother of invention. And I think there's been times when they've said, oh boy, I don't know how we're going to pull this scene off. We don't really have any funding. And I'm like, hey, give me a weekend. Let me shoot something and cut it, and I'll run it by you, and I'll see if it looks good. Or, hey, I can build a Bigfoot suit in my garage. Let me have at it. And then I can show them that, like, I got your guys' backs too. Like, I am going to find a way to do this. I will get on YouTube and I will figure out how to build a Bigfoot suit. And I did. And I think my wife probably questions a lot of our marriage when she walks out and she's like, oh my God, he's at it again. I don't, but I think that's how we've been successful. Everybody's got trust that we're going to see it through. And we're not going to walk away from any project, like, ever. There's a way that we will make it happen. And we're just going to do it.
Awesome. So you talk about locations, stuff like that. So how long is the process typically for you for writing the script, getting the cast, finding locations, shooting and editing?
It's so all over the place. It's so hard to like kind of give you an accurate number because I've had certain times when I've had to be in contact with people for like 4 months before I could use the location. And then I've had times when I'm on the phone with people on like a Friday night and we're talking about stuff and everybody realizes that they're available tomorrow, Saturday, between noon and 5. And we go shoot 40% of the movie randomly out of nowhere. We had no idea. We get out there, the location ends up being really awesome. And then next thing you know, we're like, well, that was cool. We actually just erased like 3 weeks of filming that we thought we were going to have to do because everything worked out. So it's just, I don't really know. I can't ever say from one project to the next, like how long it's going to be, because a lot of it just depends on what's available at the time that I'm available. And so that's actually where the Horror Dads thing, I know you guys mentioned that in the very beginning. So Horror Nerd Productions is my local Reno, Nevada like thing here where I do the stuff with the vets. Horror Dads Productions is kind of this like umbrella thing that we made that a couple other guys who were just like me, we all decided we would promote each other's stuff by basically including each other as producers on each other's work, but we would never take each other's money. And the only time we would ever share money is if we collaborated on a movie together. And so my buddy Josh Brucker, he's over kind of by Chicago, Illinois.
He's in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I'll say that again. Yeah, I'm Chicago.
Okay, so he's over there. Okay, so yeah, he's got a thing called Gray Sky Pictures, and so Josh is over that way. I don't think he's like super. I say Chicago because I don't know the state, right? It's just like people say Vegas, and I'm like, no, that's actually very far from me up here in Reno. I think he's by maybe somewhere like Champaign or something.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So Josh is over there. Another guy named Hunter Nino, he's an actor and producer, and Hunter is up somewhere in Michigan. And then Mike and I are over here on the West Coast. And so we started this Horror Dads thing where all of us are dads, all of us have regular jobs, but we're like what we call each other professional weekend warriors. And our thing when we first got together was we just needed other guys doing what we were doing to be like, hey, buddy, you're going to get through this. Like, I did it. You can get through this. It's going to be fine. And then it kind of turned into this really cool thing where people were really loving the Horror Dads thing. And we started saying like, okay, hey, man, I just made Tahoe Joe, Josh. Like, I'm going to throw you guys on as a producer, and we're going to, put this out as a Horror Dads associated project. Because if it blows up, you guys will get to reap the benefits of that too, because your names are on. And then Josh in turn makes his movie, did a Mothman movie, and I'm on that one, right? And so we started this Cryptidverse thing where we thought, well, this is really cool. We've been working with cryptid stuff. Let's tie all these movies together sort of loosely and have fun with this big overarching thing. So Horror Nerd goes and does stuff like The Flock in my new movie Ghost. And those are very much Horror Nerd things. Now, Horror Dad guys are here. They're in the background there for those movies, but they're not part of the Cryptidverse. Now, Tahoe Joe and Josh's upcoming movie, The Woodman, that Nancy Ann and Lee were doing the podcast with at the Comic-Con last week, that's in that Cryptidverse. So there's like ways where we're finding some cool ways to kind of work on our own stuff, but also work on stuff where we're tying it together too. And it's so cool because these guys have families, they have 40-hour-a-week jobs, but they're still making horror movies. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, there's people just as insane as me that are still getting it done. And I need to join forces with these guys because it's the same mindset. Yeah, and it's amazing. And I think somebody said in the chat, I think it popped up and it said, "Is he a Youper?" And no, he's not a Youper. He's not from the Upper Peninsula. There's no Escanaba into moonlight while you're whitetail hunting. I dated a girl from Wisconsin for a while, so I definitely learned about the Youper.
Don't you know?
Yeah. Her mother was always, "Don't you know?" And we're not together anymore, and I don't have to deal with that. Don't you know?
Well, I mean, and James wants to know, where do we apply to be a horror dad? So Phil knows it, and I don't think James wants to do it because he doesn't like horror movies. However, I've written and directed shorts for horror things. I did a character. I was back at a restaurant. I did Scream, See, Saw. So he created a trap for himself, like he was emulating other horror movies as the Scream character. And I'm actually working on a script for something called Scare B&B.
Oh, that's such a good name.
And the idea is essentially because everyone has Airbnbs, it's the new hotels and stuff like that. And the premise is that there is a cult that's there, that not supernatural, just people themselves are pretty scary sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's something I'm working with a producer on the other channel that I'm on. And I'd love to get, you said Josh, information from this area, because I'd love to see how he does it, and if he needs help. I'm not that far away.
That is awesome. Josh is actually okay. So I will talk to you in private about this particular project. I don't want to blow it for Josh. That is really good to know. So I think we're going to need to link up after this.
Yes. 100%. And I'm also interested to know if he's doing anything, because last year and this year I'm sponsoring stuff at the Massacre at Davis Theater in Chicago, and they do have independent films that they show there, and I know the guys there, and if he ever needs something or you need something to get there, I can hook you guys up too.
Well, so The Woodman is Josh's movie that Lee and Nancy Ann are in, that we were talking about it at the Comic-Con. And so that is one that's actually already being shopped around for distribution, but Josh is so what we always do when we do our negotiations when we're going to distribute anything, we're usually like, if somebody wants to take on the work to put it out there to streaming and all that, because it's so excessive, like, absolutely take it, take the rights to it, please. Make sure I get paid, but take it. But the one thing that we always like to do is we want to make sure that we keep physical media rights and theatrical rights, because we want to be able to go Kevin Smith that thing around. If we want to take it and shop it around, we don't want somebody telling us we can't.
I love that you said Kevin Smith it around, because Kevin Smith is like literally my hero. It's funny because I was just like listening to Fat Man on Batman, or Fat Man Beyond on the way home here. So it's like,
he's such an inspiration to anybody in indie films. I mean, and then the fact that he also has a love for horror, because look what he's gone and done with Red State and Tusk. He's
working on right now, right?
Oh, is he doing Moose Jaws?
He's doing Moose Jaws, so he's already he's getting ready to start doing that.
So he's doing he's finishing the trilogy then.
Yeah, then that's the whole point. And then of course, like, it's funny how much he gives himself shit for making yoga hosers, but it's like there's concepts in yoga hosers that were just like, this isn't as bad as he thinks it is, considering that it's a horror movie. I mean, the weirdest thing is that he plays a sausage Hitler, but I mean, like,
and it's hilarious. It's so funny. They get stomped on and sauerkraut flies everywhere. It's hilarious.
You know what? And no matter what Kevin Smith makes, it's not The Happening, so it's okay.
Right? Let's run from the wind.
Yes. All right.
So wind. So I will definitely get you and Josh linked up, because that's one of those things that this is kind of how the horror dads work. This is basically how we've always operated. Josh will know somebody or meet somebody that could greatly help me out, which he did. He meets this guy, Connor, and I'm now that I'm on the podcast live, I can't remember his freaking last name. Connor runs this amazing site called Bigfoot and On, and he knows more about cryptids than I did not know somebody could have so much scientific knowledge on cryptids, right? And so Connor basically loves Bigfoot stuff. Josh knows that he loves Bigfoot stuff. I made Tahoe Joe, and I'm going to be working on the second one. Josh gets us linked up. Connor's got a ton of followers. Next thing you know, I get to work with the Bigfoot Anon guy. He's going to come out to Reno and help us film the second one, and he's a Bigfoot expert, and that just automatically elevates my storytelling, right?
Mhm.
So now I feel like I just met you, and I can get you linked with Josh to hopefully help him out with Woodman and earn my producer credits here by getting some theatrical stuff maybe going. So this is why the indie film community works, because of stuff like this.
Oh yeah, and if you ever need a cryptid story from the Chicago area, there is Owlman of Alsop, Illinois. Look that up.
Okay.
Because it is, the story was 2 methed up truckers saw Owlman at a railroad crossing outside a Coca-Cola plant. Just saying, it's a good movie. Good
That's so
possibility.
cool.
All right, but I want to get more know about you and stuff like that. So, what's been the biggest hurdle when making some of these movies for you?
It's the one that I always said would never stop us from making a movie, because we're going to do it, but it is the biggest hurdle, and it's absolutely going to be anybody's. And I'm never going to shy away from it. I'm never going to hide from it. It's money. Because things cost money. And, even people who have a big community like we do that really want to help out, and they want to donate a lot of cool things, or say, hey, you can use my location for free, or hey, I have a lot of cool props. It still comes down to those people are there helping you, and you need to feed them. So you're going to have a big lunch come in, and it's going to cost a big chunk of money. And you gotta say, well, these people are coming from over here. I gotta give them some gas money. So you start throwing in gas money. So there's little things like that where you give the money, and you're like, totally warranted. That makes sense, and I love that. But it's the things that you don't think about that end up costing you a lot of money. Like, hey, the movie's done, but the distributor needs captions generated for this thing, or there's a special effect that I can't pull off, and I'm going to go have to find somebody on Fiverr or something that's going to do it. I'm a physical media guy, like 100%. I do not feel like I own something if I don't own it in physical media. And so I wanted to make all my movies on physical media. Well, that costs a lot of money up front. And so there are a lot of roadblocks when it comes to money, because I start thinking ahead. Like, I know I want to make a Blu-ray for Ghost. And then I'm thinking, well, we raised a little bit of money for the movie, but if I dig into that money now because we need a special effect done, it's just going to hurt my future, stuff that I got to spend money on. So there's always kind of that worry of, am I going to have enough money to do what I want to do?
Right.
And it can be a massive hurdle, because as much as people want to help, there are still things you need for the movie that are going to cost you money. So you just have to be okay with spending some money. Now, here is where you guys, I think one of you said, young Phil over there, I think I said crafty, or I think is what he used the term.
Yes.
So Tahoe Joe was made for $800.
That's
we made the
where
entire movie for $800.
Right. That's because I have a couple budgets from like listed budgets that you have from online for a few of the movies, and that was one of the things that amazed me, was that you made that movie on that's shoestring budget is being generous. $800.
Yeah. $800 is that's nothing. For a lot of people, they probably have $800 sitting in their bank account that it's like, oh, it's not like it's some massive amount of money to have in your bank account. And there's times when I'm like, God, I wish I had $800 sitting in there right now.
Right.
Because I'm a realist, I'm a dad, I'm a homeowner, things break and I got to fix stuff. I got kids.
Oh yeah.
But $800, when you think about it, compared to so many things, I can't go buy a couple of trees for my backyard landscaping for under $800 right now with the price of everything. And we made a whole freaking movie for $800. And really, how that happened was Mike and I both like to be in the outdoors, and we said, okay, what's the best way to make a Bigfoot movie? Well, let's just go into the forest. And there's plenty of free forest to go do whatever you wanted, as long as you don't burn it down. And I already had the camera equipment. And we were like, well, we're playing ourselves in the movie, essentially, like a version of ourselves in this mockumentary. So we're like, well, we don't need costumes. We would just wear what we would wear. And it was like, okay, so we need a gun in the movie. And Mike's like, oh, I was a Green Beret. I have a badass gun that I can use in the movie. Sweet, there's that. We need a vehicle. Well, we're playing ourselves. Let's just drive our own vehicles. Okay, there's that. And then we had the whole, well, we need a Bigfoot. And it was like, oh, shit. How do we do that? Okay, that's right. We need a Bigfoot. And so I start looking into some costume makers. And so here's one of the things I want to make sure that I very much put out into the universe and I put out there to everybody. Never, ever, ever ask a prop builder, what do you have that's reasonably priced, right? There's no such thing as reasonably priced. If that's their price, that's reasonable to them. That is their price that they feel for their worth. So
right. That's something I always tell people is never sell yourself less than what you believe you're worth. So it's like,
absolutely.
If that's the price, that's the price.
Yeah. And so I just started asking people, hey, and I didn't want to go out there and say, I'm making a micro budget movie. What do you charge for Bigfoot? Because leading off with that basically says, what kind of deal are you going to make me, or what are you going to say that's like, that you think I can afford, because I opened with micro budget. I can't do that. So I just started saying, hey guys, I'm working on a film. We're looking into a Bigfoot suit, and I'm just curious as to what you have. And I was punched in the gut. I did not know what I was getting into. And so many of these amazing suit makers were like, yeah, well, I've got my base level suit that's kind of my more affordable one, and that starts at about $12,000. And then I've got my big suit with my animatronic heads, and we've got 4 or 5 different heads with different expressions. Those are going to be around 70 to 80 grand, and then we can do a custom suit for around 250 to 300,000. And I'm like, holy crap, dude! Like, this is unreal. James, I just saw James' comment. I just made 2 car payments more, right?
Yes. It's like imagine how, like, if that's what they're charging for it, imagine what the materials are and what's going into that. Especially
absolutely,
especially like with the animatronic one, like they said they had an animatronic head, like just the amount of work, because they're probably charging you for what they're basing the charge on is their time.
And I also think a lot of their charge is they're going to come out on set and they're going to run, you're getting their team. They're going to do the animatronic controls on these things. So, I mean, it is 100% justified that they get the money that they get for things. But I had a couple of questions, or a couple of guys, that said, do you have any questions after they sent the quotes? And so then I felt like, okay, that at least gives me a little bit of an in to say, well, guys, I appreciate it, but I am making a movie for like next to nothing. And so, you did ask if I had any questions. And some of my questions were like, do you have any like damaged or old pieces maybe sitting around that I could repurpose that might be a little more in my price range? And a lot of the guys were like, dude, that is actually something we do a lot, but unfortunately we don't have any right now because this person got it or this person or whatever. And the greatest thing that could have ever happened was a guy who works for, oh my gosh, it's just so funny. It's like you think about these things all the time, and then when you have to go tell somebody about it, you can't remember. But he, Immortal Masks. Mm-hmm. They're out of LA. And this guy, George, who I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, because I don't want to embarrass myself. But George is the nicest guy, and George had put out all of these really cool masks and stuff. And I thought, okay, if I could just get like a Bigfoot mask that looks really amazing, we could build a suit like around it. And George said, well, what's your budget? And I said, well, I don't really know. We're just kind of doing this thing with hopefully not much. And I said, can I just ask you a question that's like totally out of pocket? And he's like, well, what's that? And I said, if I were to do this myself, what would you suggest? And I'm like, and so I think I felt comfortable with it because I bought a lot of stuff from George before. So I've spent a couple grand at Immortal. So it's not like I don't use their products and wanted like free advice.
Right.
And he knows that because I had asked him about stuff in the flock if I could use the mask that we use for our Moloch demon and stuff. And he's like, oh, absolutely. George is this cool guy that says, you bought it from me. You don't need to license it you don't need my permission. You bought the mask. Do whatever you want. George basically said what changed the game for me. He said, why are you asking me how to do it? He said, why don't you just take a look at the Bigfoot stuff that you like and say, well, how could I copy that? And at first I was just kind of like, well, that was kind of a jerky response there, but he was so right, because I realized when I started looking at some of the George Frankodakis, there he is.
Thanks, James.
It's a very Greek name.
And so, I basically, I looked at a couple of cheap Bigfoot movies, and I'm like, well, okay, he's telling me to just look at stuff and see how I could copy it. And I started looking at it, and I'm like, these are rented like ape suits. Most of these really bad Bigfoot movies, the Bigfoot looks horrible. And then I started thinking, well, if they look that bad in these movies that got distributed, okay, I can totally make something that can look better than that. So I bought a mask, like a really cool ape mask, and I thought, well, I don't like the painting on it, but I can paint it. And I don't like the teeth in it, but I could buy some sweet teeth from Amazon, and I could glue them in there. So then I just started going, and it literally came from George just basically saying, why the hell are you asking me how to do it?
Right.
Just start copying. And I think that was his way of saying, I know how to do it. Buy one of my masks. But if you don't want to do that because you're on a bit of a budget, just find a way to do it. And it was such a game changer, because I ended up making the whole original Tahoe Joe suit for about $300. We repurposed an old ghillie suit, painted it like crazy, put a bunch of moss in it, rolled it in the dirt. I totally customized this monkey mask, put these really sweet teeth in it, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, that looks awful. But I turned the lights off and I was like, that looks cool. Okay, so we have the Jaws effect now. Let's just not show him very much and we'll be fine.
Right.
And that's how Tahoe Joe was born for $800.
I actually really enjoyed that aspect in Tahoe Joe. It was very much a Godzilla in the first movie kind of thing, where you just get these glimpses of him.
Oh yeah.
Even in the climax, you don't get like a full look at him. He's just kind of wrecking shop, and it's like so much is going on where it's just like, oh my god, this monster is killing everything right now.
Well, and it's funny, and I'm so glad that worked for you, because I'm not gonna lie, guys, we get out there on set, right? So we did the weirdest thing for Tahoe Joe, and I don't know if you guys picked up on it, but I imagine once I tell you, you're gonna be like, oh my god. So I'm a big Jaws fan too. I love Spielberg stuff, obviously. Tahoe Joe is essentially modeled after Jaws, and if you watch it again, you'll see how it almost follows Jaws verbatim through the movie. So the second half of Jaws is three guys going out looking for Jaws. Second half of Tahoe Joe is three guys going out looking for this beast that has already taken somebody and kind of rocked this community. Quint comes in as this crazy kind of, conspiracy theorist, or not conspiracy theorist, but kind of a rough around the edges, colorful character.
Yeah.
We bring in Shane, the conspiracy theorist, with the same big mutton chops.
Yeah, I noticed
who's going to lead the expedition.
His summer beard. The summer beard.
Right? And so that's pretty much, we were using the Jaws formula through the whole thing. It was kind of like my homage to that. And the one thing that I knew I wasn't going to be able to do was jump the shark onto the boat and show this full body thing.
Yeah.
Because
we're gonna need a bigger tent.
Yeah, right. We got out there on set to do the second half of that movie. Now, the whole second half of that movie, when we start that scene, when the three of us get together, and that whole second half was actually filmed in real time, live, in one day. I was editing it as we were going. So as we were shooting, I was dropping footage, and we were cutting that entire movie live from the set. One of the weirdest experiences ever, but it was very cool. And we're actually going to do a lot of that in the second one too. But I saw Mike put on the Tahoe Joe suit because he was going to have to double. And I saw that thing in the daylight when we were taking a break, and I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna make the worst movie ever. This thing is awful. And I'm just like, what are we doing? You know, I thought, I don't even know how we're gonna finish this movie. This is so bad. So I'm stressing about it internally, but I'm not saying anything. I'm like, I got these guys out here with me. We've already started doing this movie. Like, I gotta sell it. Be okay with it, bro. You're gonna be fine. Put on a strong face. And it's getting dark. And they put the suit on. And I'm checking some lighting. And I hit him far away with the flashlight. And I'm like, ew, that looks so gross and like freaky from far away. And then it was like, oh my God, we're fine. We'll just keep him in the dark. We'll barely show him, and it should work. And then this is where that collaboration thing came in. Me and Mike are looking at a few things, and we're noticing that the mask has this like plastic sheen on it, and the flashlight can't really hit it because it's reflecting. And I'm like, damn, dude, I don't know what to do. And Mike said, bro, what if we film the end of the movie when it's really dark in night shot, where you can go green, and we do like this night shot mode, and it can be very grainy. And I'm like, that's genius, because that takes away needing a light source on him.
Right.
And I can use digital grain to kind of make it even worse than it is. And we can really kind of muddy it up. And then we had already brought in that kind of subplot with the government using jammers and affecting the equipment. So then it was like, well, now we can use glitches and all these things to hide stuff. And that's how we shot around it. And that's kind of how we do most of our movies. It was just like, we need to do it because we're already started. We're going to finish it. What's the best way to go about it? And then it was just like, that's when we learned. Tahoe Joe looks way better when you really don't see him very much.
Yeah, and that reminds me a little bit, Phil. I don't know about you. We had the opportunity to interview the little girl from Man Us the Hands of Fate. And talk about that shoots and stuff like that. It sounds very similar. Just like I said, it still goes back to that family aspect, and you do stuff on the fly. And it's awesome to hear that you're doing editing on the fly. That to me, that's amazing.
That was one of the craziest things I've ever done. And it's cool because when you know, at the end of the movie, obviously when we jump in the car and then I'm on the computer there and the Horror Dad, we of course changed the background to the Horror Dad's logo for a funny cameo and stuff with those guys. We like that was, I'm on the computer doing stuff like there, like we had the computer up and I'm filming, and I just thought this is the most bizarre kind of reality meets fictional multiverse thing almost happening right now, because I'm working on a movie as the real Dillon Brown playing Dillon Brown in a fictional story,
Right.
and it's happening at the same time. It's like, it's literally coinciding at the same time. And eventually we knew it's going to intersect. And at the end of Tahoe Joe is really where kind of like reality and fiction did hit at that moment. And just a really unique way to do it. But it also was extremely exciting.
Yeah.
It almost made me and Mike feel like there was a live audience watching, even though there wasn't. But it like put the pressure on and it made stuff so much more fun.
Yeah, me and Graveyard were talking because we both watched Tahoe Joe.
I'll watch all three in the past 2 days.
Right. No, we because I mean, you know, it was you know, for both of us, because we're both like busy and work and everything like that. So we're both like, it has to get done by yesterday night. Like we have to watch all three of these movies by yesterday night. So we're like texting each other to play by play on, you watching Tahoe Joe? I'm watching Tahoe Joe. All right. This movie is meta as hell, man. Super meta, man. But I like stuff like that, though. I like when there's commentary on things where it's like, you know, the story is it's obviously a written story, but at the same time, it's commenting on everything that's happening in real life, and you guys are playing yourselves and things like that. Like, you know, that's always been an interesting aspect to me. I also love nonlinear stories. I mean, like, you know, like stuff like that I enjoy. I think that's what made me enjoy, you know, kind of like The Flock and Ghost as well, is because they're very non-linear as far as like leading up to the climaxes of both of those movies.
I mean, we shot those movies are like way out of kind of order. There's a lot of timeline jumping and stuff, and we did that on purpose.
Right.
Honestly, we did it because it was entertaining to us to be like, if we ever want to push on with these, we have like a million ways we could go about it, and we never felt like we were writing ourselves into a corner if we always kind of left a lot of things open. James says, we know your primary goal is to make the movies, love the expanded universe stuff, but what other mediums, books, animation, comics do you plan to use to keep expanding the stories? It's funny. I would love to do some of that stuff, but again, I don't want to allocate my funding to stuff like that if it's going to take away from my movies. I would be so down if there was a comic book artist that said, like, I want to do like a Tahoe Joe thing. I've got plenty of stories that we could tell if somebody wanted to do like the artwork for it, and we're down. I am the first to say that I love my work and I want to hold on to it, but dude, I will sell out so fast if somebody wants the property. Like, take it, do whatever you want with it. Just make sure I get some payment out of it, but go have fun, enjoy the property.
If only we knew some comic book artists.
I know. If only we knew comic book artists specifically that work in horror.
Yes.
Right. We're gonna have to have a conversation. So I've got a fun question here, and it's kind of just going back towards what we talked about before. So like Tahoe Joe, the budget was like $800, right? The Flock, I think you listed it as $1,200, right?
But I think that one's like $2,500.
$2,500 was what that was. Okay, so I mean, like, like you have these budgets. If given studio backing with say $1 million or maybe even like 10 million, right? Is there anything that you would do differently? Or like what kind of movie would you make if you had that kind of budget? Would you still make a found footage film, but just kind of, like do like a Tahoe Joe that looks like a real Sasquatch? Or would you do, would you prefer to just like go and do like a big budget film and do something that isn't necessarily a found footage film?
Yeah, so I'll be the first to admit I don't even watch that many found footage movies, and I started doing found footage because it was what I could do at the time, right? If I don't have a big fancy camera and I don't have a cameraman to hire, then I got to put myself in the shoes of the cameraman, and it's just easy. You have so much freedom with found footage in certain ways, but then I started learning that there are some unbelievable hurdles in found footage that you also have to overcome that I don't think people realize. So everybody says, like, well, it's found footage, you can do it cheap because it doesn't matter if your shadow's in the shot or your reflection or the sound's bad. It's supposed to look like raw footage. What people don't understand is if you're shooting found footage and it's from a single from a single camera source, how the hell do you do practical effects? Like, how do you rig somebody up with a blood pump and have it shooting everywhere? You have one angle to film from. So that has to happen in one take. Otherwise, you got to clean the whole thing up and start over because you don't have multiple camera angles to bounce from because it doesn't fit the story if there's only one camera operator. There's no omniscient presence to give you a better look at the wound, an up-close shot of it, and then pull back again. You've got to capture it in camera, and it's really, really hard to do that stuff. So to your question, if I had this massive budget, I probably wouldn't do a found footage movie because I've got stories that could be told outside of that realm that don't need that. But I think I would still run very much the same way. It would still be making movies with my homies, very much us in control. And a lot of it would be it would be practical effects, as much as humanly possible. I would want to work with big puppeteered creatures, and that's what I should say. I do know without a doubt, if I was given that kind of money, it would be a monster movie. It would be
awesome.
It would be a monster movie. There is no reason for me to take $10 million or even $1 million, even $100,000 to make a slasher movie. If I'm going to have a lot of money, I'm making creatures. I want monsters. Yes. I have a monster kid. That is where I would go with it.
I love that, man. So kind of staying on that, and I know we've talked about practical versus CG and everything like that. How do you feel about like the like combos on stuff like that? So like,
I love the combos.
Right, because I was going to say, as much as everybody hates the sequel trilogy for Star Wars, one of the things that they did 100% right was using practical effects, but using CGI to enhance the practical effects.
Yes.
Like Deadpool being like, in completely practical suit, but he animates the eyes so you get more feeling out of it, right? Like things like that, right? Like that.
I totally agree. In fact, not because I love Jurassic Park is not the reason I'm bringing Jurassic Park 3 up, because that's like the weakest in what everybody says is like the weakest one. But if you watch that movie, it has probably, in my opinion, some of the greatest CGI animals with practical animals in the same shot. And it's very, very hard to tell because they were using the CG artists were using the animatronic models' movements as their baseline.
Right.
So it moves just like the animatronics do. And there's a famous scene in there when there's a couple of the raptors, and it's the female raptors. I think they're white with like these black speckled spots.
Right.
And they come in and they're going after the group that has stolen these eggs. You know, Alan Grant's there. And there's a couple times when there's a CG raptor walking, but they did it out of focus. And then the animatronic raptor's head comes into focus and growls. And then that one steps out of frame, and then it pulls the other one into focus that was a CG one. But because it's CG and it's far enough back, you absolutely cannot tell that it is a CG raptor back there. It was a brilliant blending of the two. And then I will probably say, and this is not horror, but in my opinion, still one of the greatest uses of CGI effects ever is Forrest Gump. Because that was the moment when they were using CGI and you didn't know it was CGI at the time. Because they weren't doing CGI to make the moon crash into the earth or a giant explosion. They were using CGI to put Forrest Gump in footage with John F. Kennedy.
Right.
And that's when I learned where, like, oh, this is where CGI can enhance the hell out of movies, because you could build a small post-apocalyptic world, but behind it, you could CGI the rest of the world. And that's when, so yes, the blending to me is a beautiful marrying of mediums.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. And
Oh yeah.
on that. So before we jump back into some out of the horror questions and going back into you, I have one more thing on the film stuff. So of all the scenes for all the movies that you've made, what was the most fun scene to film? And on the flip side, what was the most challenging film scene to film between everything that you've done?
Gosh, let me think here. I think the most fun, because it was just like, it's supposed to be like this very serious, you know, and intense scene, but there was so much laughter and stuff going on. I think the most fun I've ever had doing anything was actually one of the most simple scenes I've ever done, simple projects I've ever done. I did. Do you guys know who Ash Hamilton is? He did a movie called Holes in the Sky. It's a fake documentary about an alien invasion. It's actually the most awarded found footage film of all time, which is very, very cool. Anyway, Ash is doing this anthology for like a post-apocalyptic anthology, and everybody's anthology segments have to take place like during the end of the world. Mm-hmm. So I just did my segment, and I didn't really. So I'm thinking end of the world, and it's always, your brain automatically goes to like big scale things. It's the end of the world. But I wanted to tell a story that was like, you know, I'm thinking of like 9/11. When that happened, there was a lot of videos from the ground or from people's houses. They were telling a completely different story because they didn't know what was happening. And it's a different angle than what we all saw on the news. And I kept thinking, if the end of the world happened, there would be all of those alternate stories, right?
Right.
Where people have their own worlds ending, you know, from the inside their homes because they don't know what's going on. It's very scary. So I decided, since I don't have like a lot of money to work with, let's go tell one of those end of the world stories, but a very intimate story inside of a house. And I can't really give away many of the details because I'm under stuff with that movie. It's not out yet, so I can't really talk about it. But filming that stuff was so fun because we're in Mike's house. Mike wasn't in the movie. He does a voice role in it for me, which was really cool. But Mike just had back surgery, so he was kind of immobile. But we're using Mike's house. It's me and Mike, and I got these two actresses, and all the lights are shut off because the power's supposed to be out. And we basically give this actress the camera and a flashlight, and we're like, we're gonna go sleep, sneak around the house, and there's a scary entity in here that's going to pop out whenever, and we're just going to film, and we're just going to see what we get over the next like 3 hours. Let's just have some fun. And it was so fun because it's a very serious and scary movie, but we were laughing so much every time stuff was happening because it was like you turn the lights on and you'd see how funny everything looked, and everybody's sitting there watching, but then you turn the lights off and then we're all freaked out, and it's super scary because even myself as the director, I'm just trusting this actress to go ahead and do this stuff, and all we have is one light source. It's a flashlight. So I'm like trying not to laugh in the background because I know when our scares are going to happen, and she doesn't necessarily, and I'm waiting for the flashlight beam to find the scare, and it was so much fun. It was like having it'd be like if you were in a two-way mirror at a haunted house, knowing that people were going to get scared and just getting to watch it happen. And
That sounds awesome.
Fun.
That sounds like a great thing.
So funny.
I think Graveyard would make a haunted house just so that he could do that.
It was
Maybe.
a blast. As for challenging, I would say it was what we did with Ghost, my most recent one that just dropped.
Which
I had an entire sequence that had to be this big giant shootout with like a lot of people, and it's a 25-minute probably sequence once all that stuff starts. And not only do I have like a giant shootout, I also have, and I'm not going to spoil it because the movie's still pretty new, so I don't want to say the ending. But we also have, like a creature type thing that we had to pull off too. And all of this had to happen in one day because I only really had like 8 hours to do a bunch of stuff. And that was unreal. I mean, by the time we were done shooting that, I was so sore that I could barely get out of bed the next day because it was just go, go, go. I don't think I ate the whole day. I had no time that I feel like I could take a break. And I won't do that to myself again. That was way too much. When we did the Tahoe Joe live stuff, it was just the three of us. It was three dudes hanging out in the woods, just kind of doing whatever we wanted and making that movie. But, at one point on the Ghost set, I had like 45 people down there. And I'm the director. And everybody's looking to me. You got 45 people, and they all have questions, and I have to be the one to answer them.
Right. You also played Monk, right?
What's that?
You also played Monk, right?
Yes, I was.
I just want to know if what Monk gave that shooting the scene, was it the thumbs up or?
I think he would have given it one of these, because
like what's Monk's response?
When the fun stuff was happening, Monk was like, "This is so cool." But then when we were having times and it was like, "Oh, we have to keep reshooting this," and when you're doing a big action scene, you have to keep resetting people, and when you're in like a really, really dilapidated building, like we were hanging out, and it's also very dangerous. So, my mind is doing that one was all over the place. I'm worried about people getting hurt. I'm trying to make sure I got people out of the way because in Ghost, we have a lot of long shots. There's a couple of times when the camera goes for 3 or 4 minutes straight with no cutting. And I had to make sure I didn't have people just hanging out, taking breaks that were going to end up in the footage. So like I have that on my mind. And then I have, is everybody going to be in the right place? And am I going to remember as the cameraman to make sure I get that on camera? And I had to learn to relinquish some control. But I will say that was the most challenging thing I've ever done. And I don't want to do that again. I need to learn to ask for help more. And that is one of those things I'm working on.
Awesome.
James in the chat saying "Holes in the Sky." Sean Miller story available
on Tubi. Yes.
Yeah, and Amazon Prime and Vudu. That dude's everywhere with that movie. It went crazy.
That's awesome.
So I have a question that I asked a lot of people, and I noticed, I'm not going to spoil anything for Ghost, that he's watching Tahoe Joe, obviously in the movie. Did catch that. Do you, and looking,
there's 2 different scenes where he's watching Tahoe Joe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you talk about, the cryptid universe that you're working with horror dads. Do you feel as a filmmaker, because everything is this universe building, do you feel like you're building to that amalgamation universe with what you're doing, also with horror dads as well?
So we absolutely are. And in fact, we've planned that from the very beginning once we started talking. Hunter had this idea and he said, I'm not at like your guys' level with the directing. I want to be more of an actor. And Hunter, so here's what Hunter has going for him, right? Hunter's a very good actor. And then he happens to be this like gorgeous human being, and he's like, 6'2", and he's super fit, and he was an ex-cop, and he's all, in shape, and he's super young, he's in his 20s, and I'm like, F you, man. But he had this idea, and he said, at some point, maybe I'd like to be, a director and not just do the acting thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he brings us this idea, and we're like, you should, that'd be really cool, and we'll be here to help you. Well, then all of a sudden, I think Hunter started seeing all of the crap that Josh had to do on these sets and how much you're responsible for it. And I think for Hunter, it was like, damn, I'm having more fun in front of the camera. I don't want to take away from that with all of this stuff I have to do behind it. So we started talking a little more about his idea, and then it was like, what if we we build this cryptid verse that we're doing and we end it, not necessarily end it, but we finally tie it together, and we make a movie and we do like what Radio Silence did with Scream, directed by Radio Silence. This will be directed by the Horror Dads, and the three of us will come together and we will direct this movie that kind of brings all of our stories together. But the really funny thing with The Ghost and The Flock and The Devil's Children, those movies I did outside of that, is that those movies are not included because they are movies in the cryptidverse. They're movies that we're watching in those,
right?
And then they're watching our real reality cryptidverse movies in there. So it's like Mike and I are coexisting in this very fictionalized storyline, and then in a more realistic fictionalized storyline. So it's super fun to just kind of have that fun together. But we're absolutely building to something that we're super, super excited about. And it will be like our, this will be our Avengers in a sense, where we're going to get all of the people that we've enjoyed working with are going to get a chance to share the screen together. And, it's probably a 2025 production because we have some other plans. Maybe next year if things work out. But yeah, man, that's where we're going with all that stuff.
That sounds awesome. I don't know if you watch Crypt TV at all on YouTube. They the Door in the Woods or something like that. They built out that Crypt TV universe too. That those are obviously shorter movies and stuff like that. 8 to 15-minute stuff. And they did something like that, but yours sounds even better, quite honestly.
Yeah, I mean, we're really hoping. We think we've got enough fans and stuff that would be excited to watch us finally all come together on the set. So Tahoe Joe 2, I'm actually in pre-production on now. And that one is going to sort of be the first taste of bringing some characters together. And then after Tahoe Joe 2, Josh is already pretty open with the Woodman 2, which, that's a really cool thing is the Woodman is already testing so well with people who've seen it that it was a no-brainer to go ahead and make a sequel to that one. So Tahoe Joe 2 and the Woodman 2, both sequels will start blending those things together. And then, after those things is when we're really going to start that full kind of collaborative effort.
That is awesome. So you're saying, is there a chance that we may have Ghost fight Tahoe Joe at some point?
No, so Ghost will stay out of it, but Michael Rock is going to probably fight some Woodmen, and that's about as much as I'm going to say.
Okay.
But the very fun thing for us is, we do all of our stuff primarily over here on the West Coast, and that's going to be that time that we're going to get to go to like Georgia and get Michael Rock out of the desert and start expanding that universe where these characters are moving around and entering other storylines and stuff. So
you're saying there's a chance?
There's a chance.
There's a chance. No, man, I love the post-credit scene in Tahoe Joe where you you guys are kind of mentioning other cryptids and that the existence and things like that. I love the expansion on the universe. Again, at the end of The Flock, you kind of lead into ideas that lead into Ghost. So I mean, I'm enjoying the storytelling, man. I mean, that's.
Did you guys watch the very first movie I did by chance, The Devil's Children? I don't think I may not have even brought that one up in the email because I hate it so much. But which I think everybody on their very first film, you have that disdain because you're like, oh, I was just starting out. I had no idea what I was doing. However, so the way that the universe works in this one is the Devil's Children is the party that happened in the flock when they the cultists basically take that kid hostage, and they got him.
Yeah.
The Devil's Children is the story of that party of those kids going and hanging out together, and it's that story. And then the very end of that movie is essentially the cultists getting them, and you realize that like, oh, there's something else at play here. This is crazy. These people like summoned a demon at this party, and it didn't quite work, and then these cultists came in and they've taken this kid. And so V and Danny from the flock are actually very big characters in the Devil's Children. And when you watch the flock, when it ends and there's that post-credit scene with V and Danny and stuff, and it was probably a little confusing, like what, I don't know really where this is going with them. Well, the way the flock plays out is the party scene happens in Devil's Children, and V and Danny have him, whatever, and it's playing out like a sequel. But in the Devil's Children, a big part of that movie is it's bouncing back and forth between an interview with V talking about what happened at the party, and then the footage of the party itself with the kid who was videoing there. At the end of the flock, the big reveal is you learn that the flock took place between the interview that V is giving and the events of the party. So the talking with her at the end is her, or the voice at the end, basically rolling camera and all this kind of stuff, is the interviewer from the Devil's Children getting ready to interview V, and then she's going to tell her story. So the flock is like this weird sequel, prequel that fits between both these storylines in the Devil's Children. We didn't want to get super convoluted anymore with Ghost. We're like, okay, this is going to be tough. So we're like, let's just make Ghost a true sequel to the flock, but we're going to spin it hard enough away from the flock that if people haven't seen the flock, we'll give them a little bit of what happened, and then you could watch it and you don't necessarily need to see it because we've spun off enough to go in a new direction.
Right, because I mean the focus is mostly on Ghost.
Yeah, and then, in the flock, Ghost is just a very small character. He's just there, and obviously, and the flock's been out for long enough that I'm going to go ahead and just say, like you see Ghost die in that one, and it's like, oh no, the mercs are all getting taken out by these crazy cultists. But we thought it's a horror movie. People come back from the dead all the time in horror movies. So,
absolutely.
So it's a Green Beret that was stabbed. Of course, there stands to reason, that he would make it. And then we had the character of Trinity, who never really got a wrap up with her story in the flock. So we're like, perfect. Let's hit up Naomi. She was like, oh, I'd love to come play Trinity again, and let's bring her back for Ghosts. And so it was super fun to get to have that reunion with her too.
I mean, you could just pull a Star Wars and say somehow Ghost has returned.
Yeah, right. Force Ghost.
It was a force, so something with the Force Ghost and a clone, and
it was just a messy thing. Yeah, the Emperor's back.
We all know the secret government program that Shane was talking about, where they're just cloning Green Berets out there. That's
right. So with this whole thing we've been talking about with the horror dads thing, I'm probably going to have to go do some dad duties. And is there a way you guys maybe could wrap me up on this show? I hate to cut it shorter than you want, but
no, this actually went long. So I mean, that's
okay.
We'll start getting into the wrap up questions here. You saw some of these questions at the at Silver Age Comic Con. We're gonna ask you the same ones, right? So got to ask you the first one. What's your favorite kind of taco?
Okay, I married a Mexican woman, and she makes these tacos that are, we just call them Nana tacos because her name is Juliana, but all the nieces and nephews call her Nana. And they always ask for, can we have Nana tacos? So she takes the tortilla and she puts chicken on them and the homemade salsa and avocado and everything. And then she rolls them kind of tight, almost like a flauta or something. Mm-hmm. And then she deep fries the entire thing in oil on the pan so they stay shut because they've been fried shut now with cheese and stuff in there melted. And then you take those and then you go dip those in more salsa.
Yeah, she's making taquitos.
Yeah.
What she's doing, she's making some taquitos right there.
Yeah, almost like a taquito. Yeah, delicious.
All right, awesome, man. So this one we've been talking about it over the course of the show, but just any kind of driving a point. What's some advice you might have for somebody who's just trying to get into the industry,
like me?
So for you, and then remember the at the Comic-Con there was the kid who said, he lived in Reno, and he said, I'm going to school, I want to be a director someday or whatever. I wanted to try and catch that kid, but they left before because I wanted to talk to him.
That's partially my fault because I was telling the story on Tuesday. I told him to go talk to Jazz Badwalia because Jazz, he's from Reno as well, and he's an actor and everything. He went to a couple acting schools in Reno, so I told him, hey, go talk to Jazz because Jazz will, there's acting schools. That's probably a good place to start. And he's like, oh my god, really?
Yeah.
And he lined it, and I was like, well, I mean, wait for the end of the interview, but yeah.
Yeah. So my advice, two pieces. One from my very good friend Dutch Merritt. He made a movie called the Horror in the High Desert series. They are blowing up. That dude today, I'm going to plug this for Dutch. That dude gets listed not only in like I can't even remember the publication. It was like Variety. Somebody talks about like 10 essential found footage movies, and Dutch's movie gets put in there. And then all of a sudden, 3 hours later, Fangoria lists his movie as like one of the top 15 scariest found footage movies of all time. And I'm like, dude, seriously, you're just all over. I mean, he was in the Wall Street, Wall Street Journal, I think, not that long ago. I mean, dude is everywhere. Right? He's in the New York Times. Dutch told me the greatest piece of advice for an indie creator I have ever heard, and he said, when you're writing your movie, write what you know you have. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. And he said, look, man, he goes, if you write about a school bus that's got to crash into the Capitol building, do you have a school bus? Do you have somebody that can make a replica of the Capitol building? Do you have a CGI guy that can do that? And he said, if no, then maybe take your scene and say, well, I don't need the guy to crash a school bus into the Capitol building, but I probably could have somebody crash a Ford F-350 into a crappy old barn because I know a guy with a Ford F-350 and I know a guy with a barn. And I started to realize he was so right. And the more that I started realizing if I write small scale like that, it's very easy to expand and make them bigger if the opportunity presents itself. But it's very hard to write too big and scale back when you don't have those resources. Right. So write what you know you have. And then the ultimate piece of advice to anyone, any age, any background, just go freaking make a movie. You have a phone in your pocket at all times and it has a camera on it. You do not need anything else. Film your little brother, chase him around, put a monster mask on him, put a bedsheet on somebody, have him be a ghost. Just have sound effects. You don't even need to have a creature in your movie. You can have scary sound effects. Make movies. Get your phone out. Make movies. It will keep getting better the more you do it. So just go and do it.
That's awesome. That's really good advice.
Oh yeah.
It's what we tell people whenever they tell us, "Hey, I want to start a podcast, but where do I start?" Just turn on a microphone and talk.
Yeah,
that's it.
There is no starting point you can tell somebody other than you haven't started until you've started. So hit record on the phone and go, or like you said, get the mic going and start talking, and it will get easier and easier from there.
Right. Our very first episode, and now we're 135 episodes out. But I mean, like our very first episode was you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. What do they say? It's that famous quote of, "It's like a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step."
Oh yeah, it's a good one. So again, hard hitting questions. We ask the hardest questions, right?
Do it.
Who would win in a fight? Tahoe Joe, Harry Henderson, or Scuzzlebutt?
Oh my God, Scuzzlebutt. That's the South
I
Park
had to
one,
add
right?
Scuzzlebutt. Yes.
Scuzzlebutt is the one with doesn't he have
Patrick,
celery for a leg and
he has celery for a hand and Patrick Duffy for a leg.
Patrick. Okay, so as much as I love my boy Tahoe Joe, and I think Harry and the Hendersons is amazing, Scuzzlebutt might win because Patrick Duffy is no joke. I mean, this guy was in Dallas. This guy's in Step by Step. This dude had to deal with Susan Sarandon. I'm thinking Scuzzlebutt might be the guy.
Okay. Let's throw a wrench in here. Man, Bear, Pig.
Ooh.
Oh, dude, MVP's mopping the floor with everybody.
Especially have you played the South Park game?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God! So
Hard.
Man, Bear, Pig shows up, and it is the most terrifying thing in existence, man.
Although Morgan Freeman is pretty hard to beat too.
Morgan Freeman is the hardest character in the game. He's the post credits boss, and he's impossible to kill. But no, Scuzzlebutt. Oh, sorry, not Scuzzlebutt. Man Bear Pig is the most terrifying monster in that game, because you finally get to see what Man Bear Pig looks like, and he's mostly grizzly bear. Let's just put it at that.
Yeah, he does show up in the show. In the most recent season, you do get to see him, and he's in the show ripping some people up. And I love that they went just absolutely horrifying when they finally showed him. It's so funny to me.
Right.
But yeah, so if MVP joins in, then I sorry TJ, I'm going MVP. It's just going to have to happen.
All right, man. So before we jump into just kind of like carting you off here, what's your favorite scary movie?
Oh God, that's like the worst question. Graveyard probably knows. That's like the hardest question ever to ask.
I just typed it.
He's the one that wrote it, so I mean, he's probably doing that.
So I mean, I love. Obviously, I talked about the John Carpenter stuff being those like really big influences and stuff, but if I was to pick a movie that maybe wasn't necessarily like the fun side of horror, where I can just sit and turn it on and it's like it's hilarious or goofy. If I was to go like really truly a movie that I thought was really scary that I can watch a lot,
Showgirls.
Oh, yeah, boy, the hot tub scene is terrifying.
Mine's the Notebook.
Yeah, that was rough. So I mean, Jaws is probably like to me the greatest horror movie ever made because of what it represents to me. That's my personal opinion. But I'm gonna go with the one that absolutely every time I watch it is so mind blowing to me is Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Psycho scares me. Psycho scares me so bad because I think everybody has had an encounter with a person that could very easily be a Norman Bates style person, and the idea and the fact that it's a movie that's that old, but the idea of pulling into a motel where you're supposed to be getting out of the danger of the road and the elements by having a place to stay and a bed to get into at the end of the night and a roof over your head, that it's supposed to be a place to go relax and get off of the road. Taking the motel and making it the catalyst for a guy to hunt essentially his prey is absolutely horrifying to me. And then the peephole, there were so many groundbreaking things in that movie, and that movie still to this day, it very much unnerves me with the idea of a man who his mother is talking to him in the house and she's been dead for God knows how long. That is freaking terrifying to me.
I agree. No, that's a solid choice for favorite scary movie. It's a very
There's a long-winded way to get there, but that's the one. Like that is the one. If somebody was to tell me, like I've never seen a scary movie, what is one that you would suggest? It's like that would be the one. You should sit down and watch Psycho.
Yeah,
absolutely agree.
Love it, man. All right, so let's wrap this up, man. What's next for you, and where can everybody follow you and learn more about you, about horror nerds and everything going on?
Tahoe Joe 2, that's our next thing. It's in pre-production. As I had already mentioned, so the one I was doing with Ash that I did shoot the short for, that's called, it's got the best title, Effed, Tales from the End Times. And that one, I don't know when their plans are to kind of drop that. I know that we all have to have our stuff to Ash by about September, and then he'll do his magic to kind of build the anthology. So that'll probably come out well before Tahoe Joe 2 comes out. But Tahoe Joe 2 is the next one I'm personally working on. Josh Brucker's The Woodman, that that Lee and Nancy Ann are in. Probably we're hoping maybe like around October, November, maybe Thanksgiving-ish. The Woodman will come out. That'll, it'll probably hit on all the normal channels, Tubi and Plex, Vudu and Amazon Prime and all that kind of stuff. And then my stuff that's currently out, Ghost is my most recent movie. It literally just dropped last week. It is not even on Tubi yet because Tubi's always a little bit behind when they accept stuff. We never really know when they're going to take it. So it's like if I got the email from them saying, hey, we're picking it up, I know it's probably like 5 weeks or so before they'll put it on. But Ghost is streaming on some small platforms right now, Wicked Horror TV and POV Horror. They are subscriber-based channels. They're very cool. They're very niche. But it will be hitting Tubi and will be hitting Plex. It is also available on Blu-ray already. In fact, I'll show you guys. The Blu-rays look amazing. They turned out really good. The guys did a really nice job. And you guys can you can find me on Horror Nerd Productions on Instagram, on Threads. I think that's what that new thing's called, Thread or whatever.
We're on Threads.
Yeah. And then we have the Facebook page that we use a lot. Feel free to hit us up with DMs, especially if you're a veteran. We want to work with you. We want to at least try and find a way to get you in, especially if you're a veteran who suffers from PTSD. And yeah, that's just hit us up in the socials. We respond to pretty much every message, Facebook, Instagram, wherever. And then Horror Dads has Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. So just do not feel free to, yes, absolutely feel free. Do not hesitate to hit us up. We are not, we're not those people. We're just regular guys. We're dudes. So just hit us up. We want to talk to you.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, we appreciate you coming on, spending your time with us, telling us about everything, man. Easily one of our favorite. This is going to be one of our favorite interviews at this point, man. Because
you guys are so nice. Thank
no,
you. This is super fun.
Your passion, man. It shows through. It shines, and it's very much. We appreciate your work that much more because we know how much love goes into it, and that's a big deal to us.
I thank you. I appreciate that, and I can pick that up from both of you guys. So I think that's why it's such an organic conversation here to just go.
Awesome. I love this.
All right.
And I will hit you up, Graveyard. We'll get some emails going.
Yeah,
about
absolutely.
That other stuff for sure.
Sounds good.
All right. All right, guys. Let's get one more last shout out here for Dillon. All the kids are happy, and then hopefully you hear this a lot sooner too.
Thank you, everybody.
When you get that $1 million budget.
Yeah, right. Cool.
All right, man.
Awesome, man.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Bye.
Man, that was great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
you think I enjoyed myself? I clearly enjoyed myself.
Clearly enjoyed yourself. I can see that. We enjoyed ourselves so much that we also did not do a bracket again. So ladies,
man, all my votes for DC, where are they going to go? Oh.
Your votes for DC are going exactly where the movies are going. Wait a minute. It's kind of sad, man. Honestly, kind of sad because that movie was not bad. The Flash, and it's doing so poorly, but it's actually a good movie.
Sure, why not?
Oh man, we've got about 7 minutes left on the show, so we're definitely not. Unless you want to do like one bracket.
We can do one bracket.
Okay.
I am running the next show tonight too. So.
Okay, so I mean, or we can end.
Let's wait. Let's wait for Forrest and Cam to come back on, so we have our regulars. I'd say for the bracket.
All right,
for the DC stuff.
I think that's a good idea. We should probably do that.
Yeah.
So with that, I mean, we'll probably cut it just a couple minutes early. I know, blasphemous, but
you may have made up for it on Tuesday.
oh yeah, with a 3-hour show, exactly. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, horror boners all around. Definitely had some going on here.
I need new pants.
So guys, that is it from us this week. Before we get into the dance party, Grave, give everybody your pluggables, man.
Yes, I am Graveyard co-host of the Mostly Pod Out at Night, Mostly podcast. You can find us on all social media except TikToks because we're old men at Pod Out at Night. You can also follow this new Twitter account at Beard's Graveyard, where that beard has some wild ass stuff.
I actually did change it, and it is officially Graveyard's Beard.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll have to change that. I just checked it before the show, so you must have just changed it.
Yeah. So it is,
okay.
It is Graveyard's Beard now.
So make sure to follow that, and we'll see some really good stuff on there. More stuff coming from Graveyard's Beard. On top of that, you can find me over at Kyber Cave Productions 3 or 4 days a week. Make sure to check that out. You want to help support us? Go to kybercave.com. Get yourself the Graveyard lightsaber because it's the only place you can get something this good with this name Graveyard attached to it. And every piece of every lightsaber has a piece of my beard infused into it. So it's a mix of your wand from Harry Potter and the Kyber crystal over there.
Yeah.
Make sure to check it out. We have kcpmerch.com. Check out, we have new stuff coming out. We have Beard in the Chair merch just released last week. So make sure to check that out. And yeah, and make sure, like I said, podcast is released supposedly every Wednesday at comicconradio.com. And I am currently working on the Conversations in the Void interview show that I'm working on with artwork by our one and only Mezzo, music by Aubrey herself. So make sure to follow us on all social media. Check that out when it comes out.
That's awesome. Actually, you were correct. It is still Beard's Graveyard. It looks like it didn't save it. So probably because Twitter's like, no. And I mean, we're going to have to make a Threads pretty soon. It's fine.
Oh, let's do it.
Yeah.
It should be instead of Threads. We should call it should be Threads, but we'll call it Beard Hairs instead.
Yes. Oh, speaking of the devil, does the thread page yet? No, we're gonna make one. Don't worry about it. We'll get that going on. I tried to make a Jamez's beard, and it would let me said fake news.
Yes, the latest tweet from Graveyard's Beard was, anytime an actor has to grow a beard for a movie, TV show, he must be consulted at all times.
I love it. So that's it from us, guys. Now, of course, all about the distance nerding, love and the family and everything we got going on. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are unaware and you don't know, just know. Hold on. Just know. We have merch, people. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We got merch. All you got to do is hit us up on your social media of choice. You see the beautiful hat on Graveyard's head right now. That hat goes for $30 for the hat, $35 for the hat, $30 if you get multiples. Now, if you're interested in some distance nerding shirts go for $25 if you're local to 20 if you're local to the Sacramento area, $25 if I got to ship it to you. It's just basically paying for shipping and handling at that point. So with all that, guys, that's our merch. And of course, you can go to lucharillas.com. Sorry, wrong one. You can go to lucharillas.com and check out all the Lucharillas merch. They have shirts, bottle openers, bump boxes with all of our logo and everything like that. Of course, guys, if you want us to break up with your significant other, if you want to make a horror movie starring a distance nerding cannon or a distance nerding hat, something like that, it's a murderous hat that's trying to kill everybody, that kind of thing, or
what it becomes, the hat works its way through the distance nerding crew to become the main host. So it kills the PA first, and then it goes up to I'm sorry, James. You're on that list too, buddy.
I'm trying to find. I know my hat's behind me somewhere, so I'm like, where the hell's my hat at? Then I can just hold the hat up and be like, I am now the host of Distance Nerding, along
Yes.
with the beard.
There
Hi,
you go.
hat. Hi, beard.
Do it.
That's gonna be the movie we make. Oh my god! Towards the end of the show, Say Wong shows up. Cam's here. Whole conversation going on, and they're just like, "Yep, no, just get to the dance party. I came for the end." What I was getting at, guys, is if you have any suggestions, anything you want to let us know, or if you want us to just shout you out on the show, you can always email us at distnerding@aol.com.
Yes.
That is it from us, ladies and gentlemen. Say Wong goes, no, I was here. Okay. He was just enjoying the interview that much. And it was a good interview. I had a lot of fun, man.
Oh, that was a blast.
So with that all being said, it is time for the dance party, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get everything going. Get that on the screen. Get to that. And it's now time to do it. I hit the wrong button.
Distance nerding.
Oh yeah, I didn't show everybody the final product, so we got too much into the interview. Commander Cody. I love that. Team Horror Boners for the win. See everybody next week.
Bye.